What's up, brothers and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. Now, here's the book Ancient Maya, The Rise and Fall of a Rainforest Civilization. Now, before in other videos I've talked about how they had ancient gardens that went up or near to their temples. So they had those gardens cut, edged out, everything, where you can walk in between the different bushes or trees. They had the garden, they used to keep it up. But after so many years, when it has been abandoned, it turns into a forest. Alright, I'm going to go to page 200. Read this real quick here. Alright. Architecture, astronomy, and sacred geography. The epic center of Mayan sites were constructed at great stages for the production of religious spectacles that bound together the policies under the Keohua Ejal. The temples, palaces, and ball courts of these centers were carefully placed to draw upon the sacred knowledge of the sky, as formalized in Maya astronomy, in the earth, as embodied in the concepts of sacred geography. Many Mayan temples and buildings are aligned with heavenly bodies, including Venus and various constellations. Some buildings and even building complexes function as observatories with monuments, doorways, or structures aligned to observe solstices and equinoxes of the Sun or Venus. The circular observatory temple at Chichen Itza is a famous example. But more important and more common were the E-group temples, with three small structures placed in relation to a fourth structure or a monument so as to mark the solar equinox and the solstices. E-group structures are found dating to the earliest ceremonial centers of the pre-classic period, demonstrating the importance of astronomy and administration in the very origins of ceremonial centers. These ideological and astrological functions for the first ceremonial centers are also verified by the specifics of iconography and architectural facades. These representations associate the temple and the early shaman rulers with the sun, Venus, and the divinatory power of Maya calendars and astronomy. The role of architecture as a stage for calendric rituals continue into the classic period, with temples, stelae, and altar monuments erected to celebrate key points in the calendric cycles, especially the K-Atum endings. Symbolism in architectural detail and orientation, as well as carved monuments, commemorated the bloodlettings and divinatory rituals held at periods endings. As settings for ritual and religious pageantry, the ceremonial centers and the architecture drew on more than just astronomical associations. Many details reflect careful use of natural geography and physical features to evoke sacred association for the rulers and their rituals. The temples themselves were named and conceived as sacred mountains and were labeled as such in glyphs and iconography. Mountains, especially those with caves and springs in them, remain today the most sacred element of the Maya landscape. Hills were considered to be the abode of the ancestors and other supernaturals, and the caves that are common in them were believed to be the entrance to Xbalba, the underworld. The temple entrances atop Mayan pyramids and the rulers' tombs within them were structurally parallel to the caves within the mountains, portals of communication with the underworld and the ancestors. Recent research has demonstrated the importance of mountains and cave symbolism to Mayan architecture and ceremonial centers. Exploration and mapping of cave systems in the lowlands and highlands have shown that the epicenter and temple placement, as well as architectural alignment, was sometimes determined by the presence and orientation of cave systems beneath them. In fact, at sites lacking caverns in the highlands, the Mayans excavated artificial caves beneath epicenters to have these requisite features. So I'm going to stop right there, all right? And here's like one of their observatories. All right, and here's another one. And you see here, this is what we say sunrise. So this is the summer solstice period, this, June 21st. All right, and then this is be the vernal equinox, and then this will be the fall, and this will be the winter solstice. So they design this stuff at each time of the year. The sunrise is right here, and then the light may beam through the door. Same thing from here, same thing to here. So they calculated things. These were no simple-minded people. Everything was a calculation. And like I read how they studied the stars, they looked and they had an ancient observatory here in America. Just like you look at that observatory there, you look at the planetarium here in Chicago. It has that same little design on the outside because they stole that from the ancient Aboriginal blacks that were already here who had that design. All right. So they were able to gaze and study the stars and chart the stars and also look at the movement and alignment of the sun. So these weren't no simple-minded Negroes. See, these weren't no quote African slaves who came from some tribe wearing little to no clothing and see if they couldn't speak a certain language, man. They just came over here and we were supposedly brought over here on the slave ship. No, we were already here. So these doorways, lots of times, the doorways were designed where the sun will rise at a certain time, was positioned at a particular time, and the light will go through it. So you can also know, not only it tells you what time of year it is, but also it can also give you what time of day. All right, and then I mentioned about carving. I mentioned it over and over in my other videos how they carve into rock. All right, brothers and sisters constantly were great masons. All right, not only there was great astrologers, but there was great masons and how they cut and carved into stone, to rock. They did this globally. So this wasn't just no one-trick pony. These Negroes did this globally. You see it was over in Egypt, how they was cut into rock. You see how they cut into rock over and all through Asia. You see those black images of the so-called Indians over there, or the individuals in Asia. And you see them building castles in Europe. Brothers and sisters did this globally. But see, when you constantly bombarded that you're just a slave from Africa, this is what you're going to get. You're going to be thinking that your history just started here in 1619, which is very inaccurate. Once you get that out of mind and say that you are the original descendant of the original people here, that you don't come from no Africa, no slave ship, and you really open your mind and free your mind and start studying the movement of melanated people globally, you understand it. But see, some of us have a deep level of self-hatred, whereas the fact is that we will try to explain away the truth. All those weren't black Negroes. Those were just some Caucasian with a tan. And unfortunately, some melanated people think this way. When I said it before in my previous videos, how many of these areas were very hot. So it's genetically impossible for pale-skinned people to be in Peru to build those structures. Walk around half naked. They would not have survived. In Egypt, in North Africa, they would not survive. So they're lying. So this a lot of other stuff this book has, but I want to highlight that and highlight the issue that they studied the stars, they charted the stars, and they also studied the movement of the sun. And as well, they were great masons, were cutting into rock material. Once you start really learning your history, you realize that we have a history that's been very suppressed, and we have been told, you lied to about, we brought here slave ships from Africa. That's a lie. I repeat, that's a lie. Majority of our people are already here. Like those Gullah Geechee people, their name that comes from the Ogeechee River. I said this many times, from the Yuchi Indians. They had nothing to do with no Africa. It had nothing to do with no Angolan slaves. And some Negroes believe that has a lot to do, that has everything to do with the Aboriginal blacks that are already here. The names are in front of you, man. Like I said before, Geechee, Kankakee, Soniki, was Malinki, the Mandingos, Kankakee, Tallahassee. The names sound similar because the Negroes are all over. Alright, brothers and sisters, this is your brother G Word. This is a quick little video. About like, I think around 10 minutes and some change. I just wanted to throw it out there. Peace and love.